is an alarming trend of people who identify as pagans and or witches being desperate or borderline desperate to join groups. Until the common sense of what to watch out for in a group is more prevalent and more common, this is a really alarming trend. And what the heck does this have to do with a gardening video, you may ask? Well, here are some clips of my dirty hands while I explain. At a market recently, I told someone about my YouTube channel, asked them if they would like to describe some of the stuff that I'm trying to do. And just offhand, I tried to let him know, oh, it's not just about paganism, because that's why he was asking about some of my other work. And I've said before, witchcraft is not the same as paganism. Just like being a farmer is not the same as being vegan. That's a weird example, but it's the one I have right now. I've gone through a lot of stuff, one after the other, for on and on and on and on and on. And I, being the way that I am, have made friends with a lot of people who talk about community solidarity, mutual aid, punk social stuff like that. And those were the majority of the people who either were silent or told me to shut up and stop asking for help because other people deserve it more, or I'm just being dramatic. And I know I'm going to get a lot of polarized people with this one, but the last video, all about how your religious or spiritual beliefs are not just an aesthetic that you put on, this is one that if it makes you angry, you probably have something you need to be working on. Because I am too old and too tired. I live in Washington, which is usually painted as a very, very progressive state. And if you've watched some of my recent videos before, I have talked about how people use their labels to engage in the same behavior that they would call out in other people, but now it's okay because it's them. If you tell someone that they're stirring up shit just because they're also, you could say, stirring the pot, that means the shit was there to begin with. So what does this have to do with paganism? Like I said at the beginning, too much in paganism and witchcraft communities, whatever adjacent path you might have to that, think that they're different, that their community automatically, when there's a group of people kind of doing the same thing. And you have to have more than that, and that's when a lot of people get angry that not only do they have supposed rights in the community, they also have responsibilities. People have this mentality that if you're categorically similar to somebody else, then that automatically makes you a community member. And yeah, some of this is semantics, but those two are not interchangeable unless you have an ulterior motive. And I've said similar before. I know that people will often engage in the same behaviors that they don't tolerate from others, but use a different label that psychologically distances themselves from the consistency. And because I understand sometimes my words meander, sometimes people call themselves something different, but engage in behaviors that they call out in other people, and then go back to saying, well, it's different because we use a different word. And no, it doesn't work out that way, but I digress. This video is a little more fine-tuned than the buckshot of, as I've done before, just saying that's dumb. This is more specifically about the phenomenon I've discovered over the last few years of, well, to be more brief, I identify as witch, identify as pagan, and more people on my radar have gravitated towards this idea that you need a coven or a temple, or even they use the word church I have never had good experiences with any groups that fall under those. Historically, there are not necessarily any positive associations with, not that the group inherently is negative, but the idea that you need to have a group to be legitimate, which betrays more of a motivation of, I want to belong somewhere, and it's not about the practices so much anymore. I used to be in a store that was trying to unionize, and we did have a majority, and people had signed their cards, their intent to vote. We would have won a union drive. However, people realized over time, especially as things got harder and the store started sending in new managers to watch people and talk to them privately, people realized they wanted all of the benefits, but they didn't want to do the work. So they started putting pressure on me and eventually threw me under the bus because they wanted all of the benefits without having to actually do anything. Occasionally, especially online, which, yes, is part of the real world because real people are on there, I get accused of faking being a minister because I say, hey, I'm a pagan minister, and on whatever profile I'm using, I say I am also Lokian, I'm Norse pagan flavored. Sometimes that catches people just right where they get really, really angry and tell me that's not what an Asatru minister is. And for those who aren't aware or might have heard the word but they haven't delved into it at all, Asatru is basically Orthodox Nordic paganism. It's the officially recognized legal form of Norse paganism. I am not Asatru. Not every Christian is Catholic. And people who get angry at that cannot wrap their heads around, no, I don't want to be a part of your group. I have researched it, and not all of it's bad, not all of it's good, but I do not identify with the official legal label, and apparently they do. I have also never claimed to have been ordained by a religious group, which is why I try to make it clear to people I am civilly ordained. That means I can do the paperwork. All other functions are things I have taken upon myself, and I try to be just very straightforward with, like, hey, I was not handed a robe and collar by some other Orthodox group. This is me and what I feel is my responsibility to act out in the real world. This is because my beliefs don't hinge on being in some membership database on an official and legally recognized group with like tax benefits and like temple space. So why is this a video that's in the garden playlist? Why is this, does this have like garden updates and stuff in it too? There is this encouragement for people to be either obsessed with complete individuality or complete harmony with whatever they consider their community is, whether that's actual community or something they're incidentally sharing a category with. A lot of that is a sideways way to say people that you share a religion with, or people that you share a gender with, or people that you share some marginalized label with, or you're all skateboarders or stoners or anything. People get obsessed with having one or the other. It's, at least from my experience, this perception that it's easier, therefore it's better somehow. An overwhelming majority of one or the other. It's somehow easier if you're just doing things all on your own and situations that don't directly affect you, or it's easy to fall into the trap of if you're in a community, then as long as you protect the community and what you perceive is the integrity of the community, then things will be better because you don't have to think as much. I hate social media so much, so fucking much. One small part of it, but a very strong part of it, is because I also fell into the trap of joining like some random like witchy Facebook groups, like pagan little forums, whatever. More and more people lately, younger people as well as adults and middle-aged and older, keep saying things like, oh, I'm moving into the area. Are there any groups that you think I would like to meet up with? From a social aspect, sure. The frequency in which I read and hear this kind of thing is, it has the flavor of, I'm moving to the area. Is there some place that I can belong so I don't have to focus on me as much? Or if someone has very specific labels, it still has the flavor of, hey, is there a group of people who will defend my right to not think critically? Is there a group of people who think exactly like me, so I can do something like tell someone they're not actually ordained because they don't follow my specific religion? Who here is gonna back me up if I decide to go after someone who's not exactly like me? But back to the garden. My dream is to grow a lot of the food that we eat just seasonally and day to day, but have enough where I can still give to somebody else. And that is largely because people who have tried to suck me in just because we share some kind of category and then eject me like they're excommunicating me for my sins when I am the person that I am and not exactly like they assumed I was going to be for the rest of my life, decide that I don't deserve help. I have been accused of wanting other people's stuff, wanting to control people's lives, trying to manipulate them, emotionally abuse them, along with the accusation that I would not help others in the same way I expect other people to help me when I'm going through things where I can't fix it myself. The categorical issue also applies to people who consider themselves punk, talking about mutual aid and society needs to change and be more community-oriented, unless someone that they don't want to help asks for help. Someone who they don't perceive is deep enough within their community or is not being nice enough or begging enough, it becomes accusations of, well, you wouldn't help somebody else because you're whatever category I decide to focus on. I want to feel safe. I want to feel relatively stable so that I can help more people. Which, yes, is a spot that I do believe everyone should aspire to. Take care of your tools so that you can use them on anything that pops up, whether it's you or someone else. It's easy to accuse someone of being selfish when they're trying to keep things functional, and it's easy to see someone as helpful and altruistic if they are community-oriented, when it's honestly really blasphemous sometimes in the eyes of certain people if you question your community, because, like I've said, too many people confuse category with community. Be aware of categories and how that interacts with the real world, but your community doesn't have to consist just of people who are in your same category. I hate safe space posters because they are only as safe as the person who put them up. And just because someone identifies with a label, or at least understands what a label is, what it consists of, doesn't mean that their behavior is not going to cross over with any other group that's doing something bad. I have met materialist monks, people who tried, people in wonderful orange robes who tried to haggle prices with me. I have met racist Jewish people. I have met women who have told me to accept any way that anyone wants to treat me solely because of my gender, who also knew that I grew up as a woman. I have had a witch try to threaten me with an imaginary lawyer because I questioned how she was running her Discord group. I have also met a tall, broad-shouldered black guy who was a healthcare provider who explained his experiences with other black people, insisting that he only take black patients. I was once outed without my permission by a gay woman who was trying to win an argument. A Catholic volunteer once gave me a lot of money for rent. A roommate who identified very strongly as Ace, who was paid quite a lot of money in a nonprofit, once tried to extort me because she didn't want me to move out without paying several months of rent. Your label does not make you a good or bad person. It might make you misinformed on something, but that's also relative. We can talk about that as long as there are rules in place. Again, I am not trying to say that being in a group socially or otherwise, is bad. Defaulting to that sets the stage for a lot of different behaviors that don't help anyone, even if it makes you feel safe. One of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten on my own practices, spiritual and otherwise, is make sure you keep something to yourself. It doesn't have to be something that has to be a super secret. It doesn't have to be something that you would feel horrible if someone knew about, but keep yourself anchored. And in the same vein, don't default to a group. Make sure you can do something on your own. It doesn't even have to be something that you have to do on your own. But if you feel that you can't do anything by yourself, then that's the sign of a problem. And I'm not asking you to comment below what it is that you do by yourself or what it is that you keep secret, but most of my videos are to prompt people to think a little bit differently. I have a variety of categories that I could very easily glom onto a group and stop thinking so hard. It would be very easy, especially in the area that I live, it would be very easy for me to find other witches and or pagans to make a giant or little ant ball with and just stay there. But as with my ordination, that is not the fucking point. The moment you feel like you have to have a group, otherwise you can't genuinely act on anything, that's when you lose your ability to act. As long as you default to that, you will change with whatever the group think wants you to change. And actions of the group might be generally oriented toward good, but what good is that when you have to stay with them to feel like you're capable of anything? I know I'm viewed by a lot of people as very negative, and as I said, I have been accused a lot of just trying to control people, trying to manipulate them. My practices involve questioning things so that people can think harder about it, and saying the thing that someone should be told versus the thing that gets some result that somebody else wants. Yes, I do believe specific things should be done, and there should be specific behaviors, specific changes in society and cultures. But the vast majority of my frustration and the reason that my hair looks like this today is because there is very little consistency. If people were more consistent, then I would argue against information that they use. But I am arguing for people to be more consistent, to be more honest, and take some fucking initiative. That happy news. I try to post every Saturday. Thank you for being here. It helps me have some positive pressure in keeping up that schedule because I am totally self-employed. It is exceptionally difficult because I'm self-employed due to multiple disabilities that not a lot of people believe I have because I'm standing up on my own. I also have a shop where I make some pretty things that are also functional, especially if you're into the spookier side of life as I am. I'm hoping to eventually turn this into part of my income stream. I am interested in feedback, comments, things that you would like to see me talk about, things you'd like to see me make, because once more is cleaned up around here, there'll be a lot of different projects, because I also like traditional skills and circumventing some gender norms with those. But right now, I do what I can with what we are fortunate to have, and I hope to see you next Saturday, and thank you for being here.